Yes, your 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 name and your favorite dessert.
So I am Jennifer or Jen New, and I think I have to go with warm chocolate chip cookies. And if there's a little bit of salt on top, all the better.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
No one ever says warm chocolate chip cookies. I like the specifics of that.
That's my what I would want if I had to have a last meal request. Yeah.
Well, so that's actually interesting that you started with something so specific because I feel like that's why I wanted to interview you, but I hadn't thought about it like that. What you do, and when I learned about when we met for coffee, what you do is so darn specific. I was just like, people will not have heard of this before. And I think people need to know about it because it really hits a lot of the kind of things that matter to me and the things that I think are related to the mess that we're in, environmentally speaking. So let me just jump right in and ask if you could talk about, and I'm not going to remember the specific title you have for it, but like the environmental witnessing that you've done. Could you share a bit about that? Like what it is in general first?
Yeah. So I have been for the past 2 years in a Buddhist chaplaincy program through a place in Santa Fe, New Mexico called Upaya. And my interest is in ecological chaplaincy, which is a really emerging field. And I'll start just by saying a little about chaplaincy in general, because most people, I think, don't really understand. Like, they have some vague memory of Father McCahey and MASH, and that's about it. So chaplain, the word chaplain actually comes from the French for to come alongside. And so it is to be, alongside people during periods of some kind of suffering. So whether that is a medical situation, as in a hospital, in a combat situation, in prisons, those are all places where there are commonly chaplains. But there are kind of emerging interfaith, even atheist chaplains who are working in like social justice movements and then also around environmental grief. And so that has been my interest for these 2 years. And we were asked to do a final project. And I started with, I was going to go out to the West Coast because I wanted to see nature, underlined, bold, that was in peril. And so that was my idea for months and months. And then I don't even remember why, but something jarred that and was like, wait, there is nature here. And it has already been incredibly, incredibly messed up.
Yeah.
To put it gently. I am the granddaughter of an Iowa farmer. His father was a farmer. So I have this relationship to the land, and I was curious to know more. So I decided that I wanted to go see places in Iowa that I'd read about, I knew about, but I had no idea what they actually looked like. And then in going there, I wanted to apply the practice of bearing witness. So to bear witness it's pretty much what it sounds like. And it's to go and be present with whatever that is, place, event, person, and to offer your presence to that place, and also to listen and absorb in a very embodied way what that place has to share.
So walk us through one of those times that you did that and what that would look like if just sort of a overview of one of those moments. Because right now I'm thinking a listener might right now be thinking at this point in the interview going, okay, that sounds interesting, but what if I want to try that? So what did that look like for you at one of the places you went to?
Yeah. So I was very inspired by the work of Bernie Glassman, who is a Buddhist teacher who died probably about 8-10 years ago. And he would take people to Auschwitz, and they would do bearing witness, and they would go for like 4 or 5 days. And it was always very much an interfaith group. He worked with faith leaders from, other faiths. And people would go and sit, in the camp. And by sit, I mean, meditation. They would sit in silence and be with that place. And then they would have opportunities, because it was a group, to talk. So I had this notion from having read a lot about his work that I would go to these different places and I would be able to go and take that kind of meditative position, the classic sitting meditation. And what I quickly figured out was that was rarely going to work.
Oh. Okay.
So I took 4 trips last summer, and I plan to do more of this summer.
Well, actually, can I ask you to back up for 1 second? There's a question that lingers for me. And honestly, I'll admit, this is a leading question, because I have my answer for this question, but I would like, since the audience I know wants to hear from you, what good would it do to bear witness at Auschwitz if it's already closed, if the damage has already been done? In your experience, why would that matter now? What does it do?
So I think the practice of bearing witness, whether it's something in the past or in the present, because you were just sharing with me things that you're doing that are about bearing witness to things going on in our world at the moment, is part of it is about opening your heart to what occurred or is occurring. And while yes, in the present moment, that means that you can then take some political action to attempt to stop something and some further harm, I think with the example of Auschwitz is your being with that pain of all of those people who came, and they would the group would sit on the tracks, like where the trains came into the camp.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah. And then at the very end of the tracks was the crematorium. I don't know, I can't. So that's where they sat. And so I think when you're with that, we intellectually know that happened.
Right.
Some of us are more directly related to it via family, via some of us are just more sensitively prone to find that still very upsetting. But I think so many people, it's just like, yeah, that really sucked. And that was awful. And never again. But they're not feeling it. It's not you're just not allowing yourself to be completely open to it. And then when you do allow yourself to have that kind of openness and that tenderness and allow that grief in, it makes you more, I think, much more ready and apt to do things in the present moment to benefit all beings. Which is
I like that.
a Buddhist saying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to make you go back in the past there, but okay. So you were following like what you were deciding to do here in the state of Iowa then.
Right.
And
So
you said it was hard. You found out it was kind of hard to do.
yeah. Yeah. And so I wanted to go to these places and see them myself. And then I was curious, actually, to your just most recent question, if that would have an effect on me.
Oh, you weren't sure.
I figured it would, but I wasn't sure.
Okay.
I was not sure or
Yeah.
what exactly effect it would have.
Yeah. I love it that you had these alive questions, Jen. And like you didn't have answers and you're like, I'm going to go find out. That's really great.
Yeah. So the reason why it was hard is that, first of all, some of the places were just these incredibly mundane kind of industrial. So, for example, a really large ethanol plant in central Iowa. And, I couldn't get in the plant. So I just had to go, sit in my car near it. Or the turkey poultry processing plant in West Liberty. I couldn't go in that plant, so I was just kind of sitting outside it in my car, because it's more or less in downtown West Liberty. And I thought getting out of my car and just sitting in a classic meditation position in the middle of the parking lot was probably going to raise some eyebrows. But the most I don't know, kind of impactful, like, oh yeah, I can't do this, was going up there's about a 10,000 head animal confinement, cattle confinement in northeast Iowa near Bloody Run. And I know that you have or will talk to Chris Jones, and that's where a lot of his work has been around this particular watershed and this particular
it's over near El
CAFO.
Cedar, right?
Yeah, and
kind of.
Monona.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went there, and first of all, it's just these white, long, super boring, nothing interesting buildings. The only interesting or remarkable thing about them is that they just seem to go and go and go. Like they're
Just
so
rows
long.
and rows.
There's multiple rows, and they're very, very long. And there are all these cows in there, but you can't see. I saw one cow who was managing to crane its neck up and over, and I could just see it.
Looking out of a tiny window or something?
No, it was open,
okay.
So there's kind of a wall up, yay high,
Yeah.
and then it's open air and a roof.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and around that facility, there are, and again, this is my memory. I told you this last time, and I want to go back and check if my memory is right. But that said, like, don't film, no photos, no certainly no trespassing.
Yeah.
And so I really felt like, oh yeah, I need to stay in my car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, you asked, I think, what would this look like? And it didn't look the way I thought it was going to look. It was a lot of hanging out in my car.
Yeah.
In front of mundane, somewhat industrial seeming places.
But I'm thinking about the journey though. So, like the one that you just mentioned, how long was the round trip drive? I mean, it's got to be at least 2 hours one way, right?
Yeah. So, and that every single trip was I did multiple things on the trip, so it wasn't a straight there and back.
Yeah.
It was, so in this case, first I went to Decorah, And I actually saw Chris Jones and his project. They had their annual meeting. And then I drove over and saw the processing plant in Postville, and also drove around Postville. And then I went over to Supreme Beef that I just described. Then I went up to Lansing, mainly because I have friends and I was able to spend the night. And then the next day I drove up north, like toward the Minnesota border, and found a trout stream that Chris had said was probably among the cleanest waters existing in the state. And then I drove home. So I guess but it was longish. Yeah, each trip was a lot of driving. Yeah.
I guess what I'm thinking is, besides the very moment when you were sitting in the parking lot or sitting along the roadside at Supreme Beef, you basically went on an environmental exploration vacation. Like, you took your free time, which not a lot of us have, and you said, I'm going to drive all the way up here and sit outside and witness a cattle, an agricultural feeding operation, a confined animal feeding operation. And I'm just wondering about, like, even just the drive up there changes you because you're taking the time to go do something. How many people have driven to a processing plant just to think about what might happen when they get there? And so I'm even thinking that even the journey up, there was a type of witnessing happening, because you're being changed as you're getting closer, right? You're thinking about stuff that most of us, myself included, don't take the time to think about. So, I mean, what kind of thoughts were going through your mind as you were, like, approaching Supreme Beef? And what were you picturing in your ideal world that what the experience would be when you got there?
Those are several questions.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Let's just do the trip up first.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to go backwards.
Okay.
I mean, because I think I sort of answered that already. You know, I thought I was just going to be able to get out of the car and sit really near and be able to see or be very aware of 10,000 cows.
So you pictured yourself, like, sitting in a type of
on
field.
On the ground. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On the ground, nearish this, barn structure.
Yeah.
And again, having some kind of awareness of the animals, but there's, like, hardly any sign of the animals. I was not blown away by scent. I kept thinking there would be some horrible scent, and I know that's the case. I know it is, but somehow I didn't encounter that. Maybe the way the wind was blowing that day, whatever. I wasn't prepared for the size of it.
Yeah.
Like, I know what hog confinements look like, and this was much larger.
Okay.
So there's that. The driving, I spent a lot of time when I was driving last summer thinking about my grandparents. So the very first trip I did, I found my grandparents' farm. I found the house that they built that was in a wooded area. That's the house I recall visiting as a kid. So they were both very much on my mind, and just questions that I will never know the answer to because they're gone. My dad is gone. About what it was like to farm in the 40s and 50s. What was it like to be part of Iowa agriculture when it was kind of all of a sudden doing this, like, sharp upward, more, plant more, more money, more, just like kind of, this period of a lot of growth. I thought a lot about them. And then there's something in Buddhism, in Zen, the verse of atonement. And one of the lines is about all my twisted ancient karma, I now fully atone. And there's something that's so visual about ancient twisted. I see like this tree gnarled. And so what is my responsibility as the ancestor of people who were partially responsible for moving us toward this form of agriculture that has so, contaminated our waters, destroyed the topsoil. What does that mean to atone?
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear you talk about the, a smaller, at least a smaller type of farming in the 40s and 50s. And then, to have your personal connection to that. And then to see, it's almost like jumping forward from like 1950 to 2025 it was, or 2024.
Oh, last summer?
Yeah.
25.
And then all of a sudden you're sitting in front of a CAFO.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. It's like time, like time travel.
Yeah. My grandparents never saw a CAFO.
Yeah.
Oh, I found I traveled more than 1,300 miles.
Whoa.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there any of the places that you visited where you felt like you did get the experience that you thought you would have in terms of being able to just sit in like a clearing and spend time with it the way you were hoping to?
Several things. So one, I did go to places that were really beautiful and restorative. And so pretty much all of those places I was able to sit and be with the land and the beauty and just be utterly blown away by the beauty, of some of these places. And it was, I think, really humbling for that part of me that had been like, I'm going to go out west, and has, for all of my love and allegiance to the Midwest, still has a sort of snobbery that, this is not real nature, that does not exist here.
Yeah.
Wilderness, I guess. And so to see some of these places and just their beauty was, and to talk to some of the people who have been stewarding them was so moving. So those places I was able to go and just sit and literally sit, on the land, outside, away from my car, away from other people.
So these weren't places that were environmentally degraded while you were present. These were places that had been restored and well tended to.
Yeah.
Can you describe the feeling, the difference between sitting in front of the CAFO and how you felt internally versus the experience of sitting in one of those beautiful places?
It's just what you would imagine. I mean, it's in one, you feel horror, kind of a sense of like you can't even quite wrap your brain around what's happening. The other place I was going to say that I was able to sit in the way I imagined was by the East Nishnabotna River, on the far western side of Iowa, that had a massive fish kill a few years ago. And so there I was able to sit in these on a very muggy hot day with tons of bugs, and sit by this, brown river with the place not that far behind me where the fertilizer had been dumped.
Right.
And so that, that felt very kind of claustrophobic, because like I was in these really overgrown woods and it was hot. And the CAFO was just this this just sense of such sorrow for those animals.
Where was one of the beautiful places that you visited?
So the one on that same trip up when I went to Supreme Beef was outside of Lansing. And it was one of my friends who lives there, and he said, "Hey, I from what you've told me about your project, there's somebody I want you to meet, and there's this place I want to take you." And he said, "I haven't even been there, but I know a guy who knows a guy." And so we headed out, picked up his friend, and that friend took us to his parents. And his parents have, I think it's 800 acres.
That's a good chunk.
It's a ton of land
Yeah.
that they have it's been in the family since the late 50s. And then every opportunity to buy surrounding land, they have done so. And they have taken any land they buy out of conventional farming, out of farming altogether. The land itself, so it's on the Mississippi. So it's these bluffs, it's very hilly up there, the driftless. And it has 4 mounds,
Whoa.
like the effigy
Wow.
mounds, 4 mounds on the property.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So 2 I know are in the shape of like peregrine falcons.
Wow.
So they had somebody do. I mean, this has been studied by lots of people, this land and property, and they've worked with people from the state archaeologist's office, from Luther College. They have a very close relationship with several faculty members there. So you could see, I think they did LIDAR, and you could see like outlines of the mounds and the animals they were in the shape of. They have been going, I know it's not everybody agrees with this, but they have been removing invasive species from the land, so really thinning it out. And so like the woods there looked much more like I remember the woods around my grandparents looking when I was a kid. But now they're just packed full of all sorts of, things that have come in and grown up. So that, that was an absolutely stunning place. And just standing up on the ridge, overlooking the Mississippi, right at our feet was a rattlesnake like nursery, where rattlesnakes actually go year after year after year, and to lay their eggs and have babies. On a single hike that day, I found 2 eagle feathers and an entire rattlesnake skin.
Wow.
And then talking to the guy's dad, who has stewarded this land, was, just so humbling. Just an amazing, amazing human being.
That is so interesting to me, all those things you just shared. I'm just picturing, like, if you could have walked across the land at the CAFO, the amount of experiences that you would have, that any person would have, the sights, the smells, the confinement, and then versus walking across land that has been tended to and allowed to sort of, and just all those different experiences you just described, like, I feel like we're missing out on so much that we don't even know, because we've turned the land into just a place that, grows a product, period. And it's just, that's really interesting, Jennifer. Yeah. Sorry, I just had to say that. But sorry, you have a flow. Keep on going.
Oh, no, I was done. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, do you happen to have a list of all the places you went?
I do.
Oh, great. I'd love to hear all the places you went.
So I took 4 trips, and the first one was to northern and central Iowa.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you the places I went on each trip?
Yeah, if you're okay.
Yeah.
Sharing
yeah.
it, yeah.
So I started up there at a family friend, though somebody I had not been in touch with, an old college friend of my dad's, who had grown hogs for years and years, and was really responsible for starting a kind of pasture hog business at the time when CAFOs were really starting to, amp up.
Wow.
And he saw that and was like, hell no, this is not the way to do this. This is awful and inhumane. And so I had reached out to him because I was hoping that I would get to go see a bunch of hogs.
Uh-huh.
And when I called him, he's like, oh, I'm retired. I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
He goes, but come see the prairie that I'm restoring.
Wow.
So he has 200-ish acres of prairie in north central Iowa, in kind of pothole country.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool to get his take on what was going on up there, and shared, we walked the land. He pointed out like this rock in the field that he's like, this rock has probably been here for hundreds of thousands of years, because like this is clearly a field that's never ever been tilled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I started there. And then the next day I went down to Nevada, which is where my grandparents lived.
Okay.
And I found their farm, and I found the house in the woods, and I went there. Also went to the ethanol plant. So that was the first trip. The second trip was one I've talked the most about, up in the Northeast in the Driftless, that I kind of already told you where I went. Then I did some driving more around here. I went out to Rochester Cemetery,
I love that place.
near West Branch.
Yeah.
Oak Savanna and Prairie remnants.
That is a great place to sit if there's no mosquitoes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yes, I was with mosquitoes this entire trip. Also, somebody was mowing when I was at, because people can come and mow their own plots.
Yeah.
It's really unique.
Yep.
So this whole family was there with a lawnmower.
Right.
And then I went to West Liberty to the turkey processing plant, drove up to Cedar Rapids to see something that didn't entirely fit into, because I framed this whole project as being about grief in the agricultural Midwest. And so all these sites of like big ag. But I went up to Cedar Rapids near the airport and saw where they're building a massive data center.
Oh.
And so, just the freaking size of it is incredible.
I didn't know that was happening over there. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, it's huge. And then that led me, because I got very curious about, whenever I see some weird industrial looking building, what the hell is it? And there was one over there. And so I just like drove and drove until I could figure out how to get to it. And it's some kind of animal feed processing factory.
Okay.
Which just kind of all felt like part of the same story. And then the final trip was driving west. I stopped in Des Moines, outside of Des Moines. I went to the Neil Smith Wildlife Sanctuary Refuge.
Yeah.
Attempted for like the third time to see bison. I think I saw 2 bison at a great distance.
Yeah.
That could easily have been large rocks. But there is a restored prairie area. I walked around that. That was gorgeous. It was like at the height of toward the end of summer.
Oh yeah.
And so the bugs, just the sound, just the just standing there listening was incredible. And then I went up and found the High Trestle Bridge that goes over the Raccoon River.
Oh.
And I wanted to see the Raccoon River because of it being in the news so much with all the nitrates.
Yeah.
So I sat there above it, not beside it, but above it, up on this bridge. And then I drove all the way over to the Council Bluffs area, and that's when I saw the East Nishnabotna River
Okay.
and Red Oak, and where that spill happened. And then the next day went up to the Los Les Hills, and those are stunning.
Yeah, I have not been yet.
Yeah, and I had no clue, and I was just like, wow. Yeah.
Was that your first time at the Les Hills?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is my first time in a lot of these places.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, a background question for you. How long have you lived in the state of Iowa, if you added up all your years?
50.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay.
But I always went somewhere else.
Right.
Like, yeah. Even
some other impressive place.
Right. Yeah, either it was somewhere else with, more natural awe, or it was cities, Chicago, whatever.
Yeah. Wow. I hope this isn't too big of a question, but what would you say if you had to summarize it, or if you want to summarize it? What did you learn about environmental grief and witnessing through your experience? Is there any way to nutshell that?
Can you ask that again?
Let me ask it differently.
Okay.
If someone wants to replicate some of what you did, what kind of outcomes do you think would be common?
That we would care more.
Great. Answered and asked. Okay. Yes. Did you find that you ended up even coming away with unexpected realizations or caring even more through putting yourself through this?
Yeah, definitely. I'm paying closer attention to state level, issues and attempts to both strip away various kinds of monitoring and protections, as well as attempts to, get certain people elected or to organize around these things, just a much greater awareness. I have, by and large, I've always been like a kind of very low meat eater, like not very much at all. But after this trip, like I've just been like, I look at meat and I just kind of go, bleh.
Yeah.
So that was definitely an effect. And like I find myself like I can't wait to go out into Iowa this summer. And
wow.
I had never had that before.
Huh. Okay. And so if someone wants to try this, what's an easy way that someone can try? Because I think when people think about going outside, and, I mentioned to you in our other talk when we first met that I've been an outdoor educator. So for me, I've been going outside and exploring and adventuring for most of my adult life. And actually, even as a kid, my parents always got me outside. But I think when most people think about going outside, they just go hiking, or they just go on a greenway path or a bike path and they go walking or something. But what's different than doing that versus like this environmental witnessing? If someone listens to this and like, you know what, I want to try something like what she did. What's an easy way that they could do that?
So I think, I would start somewhere beautiful. Easier to start beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And so, somewhere in easy driving, even walking distance, and, go and walk. I mean, there is very much a practice of walking meditation where you're, you're intentionally trying, not to be in like thinking, planning, mode, but just like walking slowly, walking really noticing your feet on the ground, spending time noticing the temperature, the quality of the air, where it's brushing your skin, noticing the quality of the light, time of day, seasonal cues, sound, like I mentioned, all the bugs, insects, if you're hearing an airplane in the distance. And then sit and kind of bring in those same things and just, take a deep breath, more than one. Be curious about what's under you. Like I got very curious about one of the books I read in the last year was, I don't think this is the name of it, but it's like Underground, Robert McFarland, and it's all about what's under us. So like I'll often sit and just like try and drop down into the layers below me.
That's great.
And then I
that.
also will go up and out, so what's above me.
Yeah.
So just that kind of practicing, noticing and being with a place.
Yeah.
And then if this is your thing, and it may or may not be, you can also ask, what place, what do you want me to know?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Okay. How are you doing for time?
I'm fine.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to sort of pivot here and ask you if we could talk about it was your grandparents' farm, right? Because we had talked, I told you that I would love to chat with someone about the farm crisis in the 80s. And you said, oh, I have experiences in that area. So where could we start there?
The one other thing I would say though about your last question and doing this is I also, I now have every intention to go do this anywhere I visit.
Wow.
So I like one of the people who was in my chaplaincy program and I got to know worked on a project. She lives in Arizona in the Tucson area, and there's a giant foreign-owned mining company that is going to be mining for copper on grounds that are sacred to I can't recall which tribe.
Yeah.
And so she was part of a group that was going and sitting on that land, largely to be bodies on the land to try to dissuade this. But I know very much I really want to go down there and experience that place. I really want to go to the American South and go to places where there was great harm done to enslaved people. But even, like going to Chicago or something, this is all inspiring me to just do a little bit more research before I go somewhere and then figure out, well, where is a place that there has been this kind of harm, whether in the past or in the current moment. And I just want to go and understand it better in this embodied way. So I wanted to add
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Yeah.
So my grandparents.
Your grandparents, yeah.
Yeah. So my grandfather, as best I understand it, his father had lost most of his land during the Great Depression. And then my grandfather, who was not in World War II because of some physical, actually I think it was his height. He was extremely short. And I think that was a reason he didn't get called up, wasn't it? Yeah. And so he farmed and was very successful and was able to buy back the land that his dad had lost, and then just kept going. And as I mentioned, he was part of the whole kind of generation that were encouraged to plant fence post to fence post, was the saying, and to just keep buying anytime you could. So he ended up having one of the largest farms in the state. He and I think his neighbor were the hosts of what is called the Farm Progress Show, which is a very large, kind of multi-day opportunity from farmers all over the region to come and see the latest equipment and the latest practices, all that. It was like a big, huge deal. And I remember going, and there were just these, mammoth machines. So that's probably roughly when I was in junior high. And then by the time I was in early college, it was under Reagan, and it was the farm crisis. And they ended up having to sell everything. So we went, my parents and I, and there was an auction. It was a bitterly cold day. My grandfather, who had never been much of a talker, was even more quiet than usual. I remember him just seeming very, very far away. And my grandmother crying off and on.
Wow.
And so, it was, all their equipment was out in rows, and there were people there bidding on it. And then, the land was all sold.
Well, I can't imagine what that feels like to a farmer and a family to have to sell everything like that. Because obviously I'm not a farmer, but it's like if you're no longer able to farm, what it means is you also lose your home, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just you lose the ability to farm, you lose your house, and because the house is located on the property, so you're losing everything. Wow. What do you remember how big the farm was?
No.
Okay.
No. Large. Okay. Yeah. No, I don't.
So, and after they sold it, was your trip last summer? Was that your first time back after they sold it to see it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because so there was the farm, and with all the, a barn and some kind of a machine shed and different outbuildings, and a very, very traditional white kind of, I think that's a salt box house. Just like straight up and down.
Something that just occurred to me is if they hadn't had to sell,
yeah,
how many more memories you would have had,
yeah,
visiting them over the years, how many more positive experiences you probably would have had there. And mm-hmm. It's just wild to me how what happens in the economy breaks apart community and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But they had this other house. So the house I remembered, they built when I was about 6 or 7. And it was probably about a 10-ish, 15-minute drive from the farm. And it was on a wooded property that had a creek running through it. And so that's where I recalled the most, not the farm. The farm was like work. The farm was where my grandfather went to work. It was like his office.
Got it.
And then this house in the woods was where I would hang out with my grandmother, and it's where I learned to identify trees, to identify birds. There was a great horned owl that would perch right outside the kitchen window. Fox, is amazing. So that's the place much more that is in my memory.
Were you able to see that house?
Yeah.
Is it still like people are living in it?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you get to go inside of it? Or
no, they were out of town. There was like this amazing whole group of people in the Nevada area who helped me locate them. I went to the county assessor's office, and the woman who's in charge of like land deeds, she helped me find all the past records to my grandparents' farm. And then I said, I really want to see this house in the woods as well. I think I kind of know where it is, but I'm not sure. And so she helped me track down the people who live there now. She got their phone number. She got them on the phone, and they were so nice. And they said, we would love, to host you. However, we are out of town, but go ahead, drive in, press your face against the windows, look inside.
Wow.
So I did. And
wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what the land is being used for now? Or has it been?
Which one? The farm?
The farm?
It's being farmed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just, okay.
Yep. So the guy who actually bought the majority of the land from my grandfather is farming it. He is using the house as his office.
Okay.
The house looks horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
But the outbuildings have been added to, bigger like grain storage kind of stuff. There were several semis out there, like just idling, ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's very much a active farm.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to find questions, but I think I have run out of questions, actually. Those were the main things that I was hoping to chat with you about. Except something just did pop in. The original connection between us was I attended a talk at Porchlight, and one of your friends was there, Mauricio.
Oh, Mauricio.
And he talked about a podcast related to environmental grief, and that's how we ended up connecting. Do you know if you'll be moving forward with that podcast?
I hope so. I am. Mauricio and I, unfortunately, have both had family members with very serious health issues recently, and so we haven't been able to regroup. But it is, I really want to do something with this project.
Right,
and
right.
to bring it to a larger audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you okay talking about that actually before we go?
Yeah.
Because you have some really interesting ideas that we discussed. But I know these ideas are still in formation. Are you okay talking about them even though it's not like a landed thing quite yet? You had these really interesting ideas.
Yeah, I think I have two. So, I mean, I have like a real belief that people have to have these kind of embodied experiences in order for something to click. And I realize I'm saying this to a filmmaker and who we watch films, right? Sitting there in a dark room. And of course, I have been incredibly moved and affected by many documentaries. But I'm curious about what happens when, again, there's more experiential. And so my two ideas, one is kind of informed by the art exhibits. Like there's the one that I attended was a Van Gogh, and you walk through it and there's images just being projected everywhere, floor, ceiling, all the walls, and music and sometimes voice. So how could we do that to help people have the experience of, like you said, walking from the CAFO to the beautiful hillside and everything in between? And then I'm also really inspired by the work of a theater maker. His name is Michael Road, and he does pieces that are very working with community to get their input, to weave that into productions that are about a particular issue. So taking some of the conversations I've had and interviewing people purposely for that and creating a kind of a theater experience that would be bookended by community meetings.
Yeah, I really like that idea. And would this be something that would be stationary, or would it sort of move around to different places, almost like a traveling sort of?
Yeah, both of them I would hope would be something that could travel. And they're still like very much up here.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there wants to talk about this, let me know.
It reminds me of, I know a guy named, I actually forgot his first name. I don't think his first name is Henthorn. I think his last name is Henthorn. But anyway, he does tons of film work, and he's a brilliant ocean photographer. He does a lot of underwater videography, and he had this idea that he's still trying to raise money for, where he wanted to create this traveling show that would like travel by semi trucks or rail, and it would go to places that were far from the ocean. And he wanted to basically create like this huge traveling canopy thing. And when people would go into this building, there would be all these holographic projections and all sorts of things all over the walls, so a person could get a sense of what it would feel like to be underwater and to see at the ocean level, like underwater, what it's like to be around these creatures that he gets to spend time with. And his idea was just like, this might be the closest people come to witnessing, because his whole thing is people don't care enough about the ocean because they have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why I just think that your project is so interesting. This idea you have about the art, but also the environmental witnessing, is that most people outside of Iowa have no idea what's happening here. But then even people who live in Iowa don't know what's happening here. And I would say then, even for people that do know what's happening here, like you said, it's all sort of logic-y. But how many people what would happen if more of us took the time to sit and witness and slow down and just really let ourselves experience it instead of just thinking about it? I just think that's a really fantastic idea. I would love a future where people get this idea from you and they like start putting together like, hey, I'm going to go do environmental witnessing this weekend. Who's in? Let's all meet up at this place. I just really feel like that would change things.
Yeah, I've been scrolling through. I have my paper open about this project, and there's a quote. So the other person, other than Bernie Glassman, who was really at the backbone of inspiring this, is a Buddhist environmentalist named Joanna Macy, who she passed away last summer in her early 90s and was just a force. And so I write here, if we accept there's no way out of our current situation or try to deny it, Macy says we, quote, close down our conversations and our thinking. The greatest danger of our times is the deadening of our response.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah.
And I think that's what going and sitting in this place has helped me to do, was to wake up from that deadening.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, I do have one other final question. If anyone wanted to reach out to you to ask you, like, how do I get into this environmental witnessing thing? If they just wanted advice, is that something, like, do you have a website of your own or
I do.
anything like
I have
that?
a website. It's HYPHA, HYPHA Connect.com.
So I'll put the link in the show notes. Yeah. So you're open to people reaching out to you through that?
So, definitely.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to share? Any question you wished I had asked? Any closing comments? We're good?
We're good.
All right.
We're good.
You ended it beautifully with that quote.